If we take a closer look at the current state of the Star Wars franchise, we know that coming out of Mandalorian Season 3, a lot of fans were even all the more divided based on what Kathleen Kennedy had done to the third installment of the Mandalorian franchise. It wasn't really all Jon and Dave's fault, as it turns out. A lot of it had to do with the fact that Kathleen Kennedy had a lot of creative control when they were writing this script, but no creative control when they were filming this movie. But at that point in time, it was basically too late. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And without wasting too much of your time, let's get right into the overall subject. Now, what's really capturing about the current state of Star Wars right now is that we have a show like Ahsoka on the horizon, which, by the way, was 100% written by Dave Filoni and had zero Kathleen Kennedy influence, I must add. She had no input into this show on a creative scale, and I think it's the one main reason why a lot of fans should really give this show a good shot, because it is going to be something that had a lot to do with Timothy Zahn, and he was an advisor for the series. By the way, Timothy Zahn, big Legends guy, he knows his stuff, he wrote the Thrawn trilogy, he did all his work. But what's really great about this is exactly what they are planning to do in order to create a proper workflow of upcoming Star Wars TV shows without really kind of making Jon and Dave struggle too much, where they gain writer's block or they have a lot of trouble with their upcoming scripts and such. Now, with that being all put out there and said, one thing that is very apparent right now is that Jon and Dave are going through a specific phase, very tough decisions to make, and one of the toughest decisions that Jon actually had to make has a lot to do with a lot of the upcoming projects, so let's dive into this. Now, currently both Jon and Dave are beginning to develop numerous Star Wars TV shows that have yet to have been announced that will be later this year. However, recently Favreau confirmed a couple of things in a recent interview when questioned about Mandalorian Season 3. Favreau went on to state the following to the entire fandom. Well, we have lots of projects that we are working on. Myself, Dave, Tony, and others are coming in to help us out. So I think one of the toughest decisions that I recently had to make was by leaving some of those projects that I have been working on for a while now in order to focus on other series that I feel are more important to my style of filmmaking. This was a last-minute decision of mine, and I think it's important for us as creators to have less workload on our minds to really deliver an excellent story. Now, before I get to the next thing that Favreau says here, guys, this is all working in conjunction with what we heard about earlier about how Jon and Dave are splitting up. They are dividing as creators for at least a couple of years. After Mando Season 4 is all said and done, they are going to be parting ways and focusing on their own work. Now, what's interesting about this is that I think a lot of fans are going to take this the wrong way and viewing this as one creator going up against another creator or backstabbing the other. That's not the case here at all, and it's all strictly related to workload and how Disney wants to add on more writers, more directors, and more showrunners to really kind of create the proper workflow consistently for Star Wars, to really kind of make sure that the creators are not, carrying a lot of workload and really blocking their mind creatively. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Jon and Dave, they can't handle over a dozen Star Wars projects at once. It's just insane, and it makes a lot of sense why they would want people like Tony Gilroy, who, by the way, is coming on board to serve as a co-writer for many of the upcoming shows, working with Dave Filoni. And we also have more talented writers coming on board over at Lucasfilm, some of which, by the way, are very well known and established in the film industry, so that's good news too. But what's interesting about this is that it's all going to happen after Mando 4's release, so figure after holiday season of 2024, or at the latest, early 2025, Jon and Dave are going to be parting ways for at least a little while. Now, it's interesting about this, the fact that he's leaving a handful of Star Wars shows, he's quitting a couple of shows because he was involved with some of these projects already for a while now, in the early development phase. He goes on to elaborate. in the near future, I won't be working with Dave as much on every single project, and I have stepped down from some of the unannounced series. I can confirm this with everyone, though. Those shows that I have been working on in early development are going to be a blast and blow everyone away. We have some talented writers and directors coming into Lucasfilm, and I think it's going to be wonderful. Now, separate from what Favreau stated, this all alludes to Favreau stepping down from Project Blue Point, a show all about space battles and land battles, and 2 other Mandalorian spin-off series that currently hold no code names that are known to date. Now, this departure, mind you, of Favreau is not personal against Filoni in any way, and simply a business move by Disney and Favreau's own move for opening his creative mind. Now, Filoni is reportedly going to be working with Tony Gilroy on other series and more well-known writers joining Lucasfilm. Now, again, we've talked about this before, but one of the most interesting aspects about this is that Lucasfilm is planning to get James Cameron to come on board as a co-writer for the upcoming Star Wars TV shows. Not a main writer, but a co-writer. And I think that should be interesting. I know not everybody likes James Cameron with his later work, but he has made some pretty big hits. You know, Titanic, Terminator, The Abyss. Some people view The Abyss as a flop, but I think it's an amazing film. James Cameron has had his fair share of box office hits and, you know, movies that may have not been too well established. So what's interesting about this, though, is the fact that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense why they would want James Cameron. He is affiliated with Disney, after all, with Avatar, so that makes sense. I can see the connection there. But they're also going to be getting other talented writers on board, too. It's not just going to be Gilroy and Cameron working with Filoni, but Favreau is also going to be working with other talented writers as well. So we are getting this dream team coming together, but they're going to be working separately. And given that Favreau had to step down from a couple of Star Wars shows, which is unfortunate, you know, I mean, I like Favreau's world-building style, so that's probably going to be missed in some of the upcoming shows, but I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be okay, given that they are getting other co-writers to work with Filoni and other co-writers to work with Favreau. So that's one thing to think about here, is that they're not going to be working alone. They're not going to be on their own for a lot of these upcoming shows. They're always going to have help. They're always going to have somebody to partner up with to really decide where the story is going, how it's coming together, stuff like that. So the last thing I really want to point out here real quick is that there's a lot of strategies that are falling into place here by Disney. They're going to be announcing this big strategy and their updated roadmap by this September at D23. They're going to be giving fans a big update on all the release dates, you know, post-writer strike, depending on how long it lasts, and that should be interesting too. So overall, you know, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon.